So I am among the two colleagues who said in the review that I'm coming from the Commission. Actually, I'm looking at the room, and I believe that there are more than two of us here present. It's just that we are very shy people, so we don't come out very easily. So my name is Philippe Froissard. I'm working in DG Research Innovation. I've been working in DG Research Innovation for 25 years, 25 years in Brussels as well. And actually the first time in this building. So there is always an opportunity for me to discover new settings in Brussels. I'm working in a unit which is responsible for policy coordination and urban transitions with an S, because I suppose there are more than one. And I'm directly responsible for the implementation of the DUT partnership, which has been presented to you by Margit. And I'm also responsible for the implementation of the cities mission that was introduced to some extent already by the previous speakers, and particularly by Rosalind van der Vlies. So I suppose I'm in the right place, because in this session, we will be discussing precisely the interaction, the contribution of DUT to the cities mission. And maybe I should clarify when we talk about the cities mission and the mission cities, because we tend to use these words. The cities mission is the climate neutral and smart cities mission, which is the mission, one of the 5 missions of the Horizon Europe program, which deals precisely with these 112 cities that have been selected in the mission, with the purpose of having them climate neutral by the horizon of 2030. And the mission cities that we also refer to are those cities that are participating in the mission, namely these 112 cities. So just a little bit of background and explanation to give here. So as I said, in this panel, we'll be discussing the contribution of DUT to the cities mission. And I have in this panel an impressive brochette of participants. I will start with Annalisa Boni. So I'm going to introduce them very briefly to you, and then we'll have a round of questions. And I was told that I should be very careful when it comes to the time, because there is something very important after this session, which is the lunch. So I have to stop really at 2 o'clock. My hope would be to give you still the possibility to ask a couple of questions. But we will see. So starting with Annalisa Boni. Annalisa Boni is the deputy mayor of Bologna, one of the mission cities. Annalisa has been very active in the urban activities, urban environment for many years. You were the Secretary General of EuroCities for a number of years in Brussels. And I have also to say that you are a member of the first mission board that designed the concept of the cities mission. And I could say now that you have been really, really instrumental in shaping the concept of the mission as it is now implemented by the Commission services. So welcome to this panel. And I think in your capacity, you will be able to provide the perspective of the local authority of the cities in the discussion that we will have in this panel this morning. The second person that I would like to introduce is Johan Kuylenstierna, who is the head of the Formas, Research Council for Sustainable Development. You have an impressive CV. I'm not going to list all the activities that you have done in your life, but you have been very active in Sweden in a number of positions in universities, and also very active in international arena. And as you know, Formas is a very active member of the DUT, and you will give the perspective from the program owners and the program managers that are involved in the DUT in the discussion this morning. The third person that I would like to introduce to you, but you all know the Margit already because you made the presentation. I mean, in the Game of Thrones, the Khaleesi is the mother of dragons. I think you are the mother of DUT. And if you remember, back in 2019, we had the first exchange on DUT, and at the time you came up with a terrible acronym. And the first piece of advice we gave you is change the acronym. And you came up with DUT, which is much easier to pronounce and much easier to understand for everyone. So that was our first interaction. As you can see, that has led to quite a lot. The fourth participant that I would like to introduce is Ovidiu Cîmpean, who is here. You are State Secretary in the Ministry of Investment and European Projects, so a very important ministry. You have also been involved very much in the activities of sustainability and green transition in the city of Cluj-Napoca. And Cluj-Napoca is one of the first cities that actually received the mission label last year. So your contribution will be important to look at the perspective from the national authorities as state secretary, and looking at the perspective also from the city as well. You have been very active in the work that was done by a project called Capacities, and you have some information outside the room of Capacities. I'm sure that the colleagues that are working in Capacities can see them somewhere. Capacities is a very important project because it's about setting up national networks in the different member states to support the activities of the city's mission. And as it happens in Romania, you have been very successful in setting up a national network with substantial sources or resources and budget coming from the national authority. So again, your perspective will be very important and very interesting in this context. And last but not least, Thomas Osdoba. Can I present you, or everyone knows you? So Thomas is responsible for the NetZeroCities project, which is managing the mission platform that we have for the city's mission. And you are also senior advisor in the ITT climate. And it will be interesting for us to hear about your perspective from the mission platform, from the city's mission angle. So I've introduced the panelists. Now we can start with the set of questions. I have two sets of questions. Actually, I have three questions, but we have done a little trick here to ask two questions into one. And the first question is about challenges. What are, in your view, the biggest challenge or the most important challenges that are faced by the mission cities in implementing their strategy for climate neutrality? And if you can provide to us also concrete examples that you have in your cities, in your country, or in your own organizations, in your daily life. So I will start with Annalisa.
Thank you very much. I love this kind of conferences where we talk about Black Sabbath, the series of Netflix. Great. Thank you. Thank you for inviting me. Thank you, Margit, for thinking of me. It's always very oxygenating to come back to Brussels, I have to say, from the ground when we are on the first line to try and push forward something that is called climate neutrality by 2030. So with some sort of accelerated process. So maybe just since we have 2-3 minutes to reply to this question, I would just cluster maybe I would, let's say, summarize the main barriers that we have been going through in the last 2.5 years. We have now a climate city contract signed and sent to the Commission, but to get there and to go further, I think there are, we can say, 5 barriers. I would put them as P's. So not peas, but the letter P, so that we can remember them. But the first one, I would say, pressure. As cities, we really live under pressure every day, both as local authorities, but cities in general. I mean, pressure meaning, especially as city, municipality, I mean, local authority, we want, and the mission is helping us to do that. We want to think long term. We have a vision. We have to, give this sort of longer breath to our policies, interventions, and so on. But we're confronted to every day, every minute pressure from climate events. That's for sure. I mean, Bologna has been hit very heavily, both from the heat waves with deaths and stuff, and flooding just in the last few months, but other climate events, and that requires the capacity to respond straight away, to create resilience straight away, but at the same time have a strategy for the long term. So that's not easy. Pressure from the citizens, it was said before, pressure in the sense positive and negative. I mean, we are trying to enforce climate positive things. For us, for instance, limiting the speed limit to 30 was also not only about saving lives, but also trying to move from a car, the organized city, to a person driven city. But I mean, the revolution that we had, the sort of negative reactions we've had was appalling. Really not, I mean, probably a bit expected, but really, really high. We've been on New York Times, The Guardian, everywhere. I don't know if some of you have heard, but still, so that's, so coping with these kind of citizens, which are more in the theory of change, the denier part, and those that actually are saying that we don't do enough, or that, you know, to build zero energy buildings, schools, for instance, we have to cut 3 trees, or we don't, you know, do enough in terms of waste collection, that is, you know, this or that, whatever, the very, you know, positively thinking, I mean, those that are really strict in terms of pushing the green transition. So, you know, how do you manage this sort of contradictory or in any way clashing calls from citizens? Pressures in terms of money. On one way, at least for Italy, on one side, it's too much because we have, you know, it's a lot. We have 1,200 million to manage till 26 with 3 lines of trams, schools, libraries, stuff to, you know, requalify. I mean, lots of stuff. But at the same time, we don't have enough in terms of capacity, in terms of human resources, technical assistant people, basically, to work on this project. So all this you know, pressure is, I would say, the first P. And then very fast on the others. The second one, I would say, policy. For climate neutrality to be achieved, you need multi-level policy that is coordinated. You need a regulation and legislation that is enabling cities then to put it, you know, to promote it and to make it happen. Very often you don't. I mean, the European framework is, you know, positive. You have the Green Deal and everything, but then when it goes down to the national level and then to the regional level and then to the local level, it becomes sort of, you know, sometimes not enabling. And I don't want to go deeper in that, but there is a whole chapter to be looked at that. And third, I would say, I would call it P for price, in the sense of who pays the price. There is always this, you know, how do you say, clash in terms of, yes, environment and social. Yes, we say it goes hand in hand, but it's always saying, I mean, when you have to do it, it's not that easy. It's quite complicated. It's difficult to find the ways to really push for the just transition. I want to be honest. So you do it, you try it, you make it happen, but it's not always straightforward. Building infrastructure is much easier, but demonstrating that then it will be used for, you know, and it will be beneficial for all without leaving people behind, it's another story. And the last two, one is pragmatism. I mean, the Climate City contract is helping us to have a very pragmatic approach. Before we had plans, you know, and the SECAP, which are fantastic. You know, they are the sort of foundations for the strategies and the plans for the future missions, let's say, but the Climate City contract is helping us really to look at actions and to really engage the partners with very concrete, you know, commitments, both in terms of what am I going to do, how am I going to finance it, how will I quantify it in terms of CO2 reductions or megawatts production and so, of clean energy, of course, and so on. So it's really, you know, pragmatism is needed, and the mission is helping us. So how do you combine the let's say, pragmatism with perspective? Another P is always the balance to be found. And finally, I would say power. Like, we don't get the power. We got the power. We don't got the power. And just to say another song, but the issue, again, it was mentioned before in the previous panel. I mean, local authorities are understaffed, under this, under that. I mean, it's really about trying to improve also not only the skills, because I think the skills are in there. It's really a matter of having the numbers. I'm sorry, having enough people working in there, and then you know, making sure that they can work in around another paradigm. But first, you have to have them to have them, you know, to make them able to work transversally and stuff. You need to have them, otherwise it's only talk. So it's really about making sure that at the national level there is empowerment and recognition and decentralization for this kind of you know, heavy challenge to succeed, basically.
Thank you very much, Annalisa. I have to say I missed one P. So pressure, price, pragmatism, power.
Power and price. Who pays the price? You said it, sorry. Let's say policy,
there will be a quiz.
Multi-level governance and the policy that has.
So I hope that you have retained the 5 Ps, because as I said,
the value chain.
Quiz. So Johan, from your perspective, what are the challenges, the most important challenges for the mission cities?
Thank you, Philippe, and thank you really for inviting me here as well. Not easy to come after you, Annalisa. I think you have summarized a lot of things that I was going to say. So I will try to put them in different words, and maybe it supports each other, which is not so strange. I think, the one thing is the narrative. That is the challenge, and we have talked about it already here this morning. The narrative of the mission cities is, of course, a positive narrative. It's about opportunities. It's about driving transition to climate neutrality, to net zero, and while doing that, really also creating a lot of co-benefits. I think the second part of the mission there is really important, by and for the citizens. This is what you are addressing, I think, already, Annalisa. The technical side is sometimes easier, you can say, to a certain extent. The research to show what we can do, to implement technologies, infrastructure, etc. But really to the narrative about what is it that we want to achieve. What is this future Europe? What is it going to look like? What is it to live in? That's where we have, I think, the struggle today. And to be honest, I worked 30 years on climate-related issues, transitions. I was used to the first 20 years to meet skepticism. That was the standard if you were a climate scientist, and if you talked about climate transition, it was expensive, it was difficult. Cities, they had other pressures, this is not priority. The last 10 years have been very positive, very optimistic. After Paris, there is a drive, the private sector is on board, we have the Green Deal, we have a lot of these things coming up in Europe. It's a lot of positive pressure, positive feeling about the transition, the opportunities. Now I feel something different again. I start to feel a little bit again with the geopolitical situation, with the security challenges, that we start to see skepticism. And we heard before, Johannes, you talked about the need of leaders. But what kind of leaders then? And that's where we need to start to ask ourselves, do we have the leaders to want to guide us to a better next step? Or do we have leaders to a certain extent who wants to, use the skepticism that we have? And do we talk to people who are skeptical actors? How many are skeptical in here to DUT and missions? There's one in the back. So you have one who is honest. And that I think is one of the challenges we have. It's really about the narrative. It's really about making sure in the environment we have now that we keep the pace and that we really are able to demonstrate the benefits of the missions, and then, of course, how DUT is supporting that. The second thing is addressing the challenges of the transition. And from Sweden, this is a very interesting conversation right now. We have a little bit of winners and losers to a certain extent when you look at communities and municipalities, but we also increasingly see that some municipalities, some regions argue that they are paying the price for the transition and the mission. Those that deliver resources. We have the Raw Material Act, Critical Raw Material Act coming up. In Sweden, this is a big discussion because it's about mines, it's about development, it's about exploitation of other resources. Forestry, another area, bioresources in Sweden, big challenge, water resources. Who delivers all these things that we need for the transition? And do they feel as winners, or do these municipalities feel that someone is exploiting them? We see this between European countries as well. And I think this is a challenge we have, and we see it in Sweden and we see it elsewhere. And I think that one of the key solution there, which is a challenge for us as a funder, you talked a lot about new funding mechanisms, be flexible and so on. But that is the system's perspective, really, to make sure that it's not about climate transition, it's about societal transition, and where climate is one aspect, but it's really the system's perspective that we as funders also need to work much more on in terms of how we collaborate also. I'm happy to have a lot of my Swedish colleagues here from other funding agencies and so on. We have to work together with others to really develop the instruments that can address these systems, complex challenges that you are talking about also, that you face on a daily basis. And my third and final one is how we make sure to keep it simple for missions. how we make it simple for cities to really join, don't feel the administrative burden, make sure that it doesn't become an elite group of cities, the bigger ones, those that are already up there, but really can get the other in Sweden 280 municipalities that still haven't joined, the smaller ones with 3,000 inhabitants and so on, that they also can feel that they join. And I think, I mean, we quote Ursula von der Leyen quite a lot, of course. I understand, I mean, she had an inspiring speech yesterday, and I think that when she gave the State of the Union speech, the really top quote there, the beginning of that is really what you're talking about, delivering today, prepare for tomorrow. And I think the narrative is all about that. We have to really deliver today. We cannot talk about climate neutrality and the cities of tomorrow. We have to deliver today while we prepare for tomorrow in order to really have a narrative that holds. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Johan. And thank you also for raising the growing skepticism that we see and we feel more and more, and that might actually be reflected in the upcoming elections that we have in 2 months' time. Margit, from your perspective, what are the most important challenges that are being faced by the mission cities?
So yeah, that works. So what we see from the DUT point of view, in order to address the challenges that have been raised by both of you, I think it's to make sure that research is relevant, that we address the kind of right issues, and that we make sure that they are delivered, that research and innovation is delivered in a way that it can be taken up by whoever, policy, business. And we have a tradition on the economic perspective, right? But we have less a tradition on the science policy or science society perspective. And that's where we need to improve. That's quite, and whatever I presented before, I think that's the bottom line, right? We want to make sure that whatever money we're putting in the program, that this ends up as a relevant outcome, and this is useful for all of you here in the room and in Europe. And that requires new formats of cooperation, that research is able to understand whatever challenge a city or a community has, and translating this into research and deliver the outcome in a way that it can be taken up. And that requires new forms of cooperation, new forms of projects, new forms of communication. It's a huge thing that needs to advance so that it's really transformative. And I think I would be curious to hear what Thomas says about that, because I think that's the bottom line that we need to understand, right? Also for the mission, because the mission approach is really a game changer that we as DUT want to support. We have been working along those lines for many years, but now the mission already gives a new dynamic to it, where we want to support it and create an environment that helps making this change happen. And I think that's one of our biggest challenges.
Thank you, Margit. Ovidiu, from your perspective, what are the challenges? Hello.
Yeah, so thank you very much. So I think that there are a lot of challenges. So the cities that are part of the mission, they are accelerating their road to climate neutrality. And when you are accelerating this process, you can leave parts of the society behind. And I think that even in the most advanced cities in Europe that are trying to achieve climate neutrality, we can see that parts of the community, parts of the decision makers, parts of the public servants are having this resistance phase, or even denying phase. So I think that because here we are with a lot of researchers in the room, we need to explain better and to target both of this group, even the decision makers, to target them and to explain better on their language what are the results of achieving climate neutrality, why we are more efficient as a community, what quality of life means with implementing this type of project. So I think that communication is very important, and in order to avoid this setback or this steps in the back. Financement is also a challenge. I think that the national level should bring his part of effort, so not leaving the cities alone and the European Commission alone. So we need the regions and the national level to be involved. And in Romania, we launched this platform, M100, and we aim to finance with 1 billion euros by 2030 the mission, and also to have, because you said not to have only the champion cities in the mission, we want to launch a mirror mission with another 10 cities from Romania for being part of this process. I think that another challenge related to financement, for example, is for example, in energy efficiency, there are projects that are more expensive than in previous years. For example, we have inclusion example with 6 million euros. We achieved the standard of net zero buildings, but now the prices are higher and higher, and we have a feasibility studies with 18 million euros for one school. So I think that, for example, what DUT can provide together with national researchers and experts is how we can find to have the same results or better results, but with lower cost. And this is also a topic that should be addressed. So these were the main ideas that I wanted to.
Thank you very much, Ovidiu. Thomas, what's your perspective?
All right. He worked so hard on these. I'll make sure we use them. Thanks again for having us come here and participate in this. So a couple of thoughts. I'll try to be quite brief so we can get deeper into the conversation. You know, the mission as an idea is really grounded in principles of innovation and learning. And I think it's been 2 years this month since the cities were first identified by the Commission as those that would be participating. And it's worth noting that, you know, more than 2 times, again, more cities sought to be part of this process. And so I think it reflects a real strength of commitment at the city level. But in the 2 years, I think we've tried to work on innovations and have been learning quite a lot. And one of the things we're learning right now, back to some of the conversation around the skepticism and the political context right now, is we're learning how to understand what a mission can be as a bridge between previous priorities and emerging priorities. So the Green Deal and the ecological and social objectives of those policy initiatives versus meeting in the middle with emerging conversations about the needs of businesses, investment, and industrial policy. We need to transform industry, not just our cities, to be successful in this mission. And so we're learning as we go about things that weren't really part of the conversation even 2.5 years ago. And that's one of the strengths. I do want to make a quick plug for one of the best ways to understand the needs and barriers or drivers from the city perspective is to ask the cities. One of the first things that we did was put together a report that tried to capture what the voices of the cities were saying about needs, drivers, and barriers. And you can go to the resources section of the NetZeroCities website, and I encourage you all to read that. I'm not going to repeat what's in that document, but it is very informative. We go back to that report all the time to remind ourselves of how the cities have expressed that. I wanted to just speak about one other thing in terms of the barriers from the perspective of a city. And a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away, I worked for a city and I had a job not unlike Annalisa's, but it wasn't grounded in a mission. It was just do your best in that regime at that time. And after a little bit of time working there with the city and with all the department heads and the city manager's office and the mayor's office, I had a very interesting comment come back to me, which was, you have to remember that we have only so much appetite for innovation. And there's a lot of insight packed in that one sentence. And I've carried that around for 20 years. What does that mean for us as we work with cities? And I think a couple of things I want to highlight. One is capacity needs. What we're talking about and trying to achieve with the missions and with the cities is a mobilization that is really profoundly radical. And we have to recognize the capacity demands that's placing on cities, the city leadership, the city staff, et cetera. Tim talked about the community needs to be part of that. That's a capacity issue that requires constant attention because we're asking not just to innovate in one thing, we're asking to innovate in multiple things simultaneously because they work together. That's one big challenge. Another is, and this is where I think some of the work DUT is doing right now with the 2022 projects and the calls is really exciting. We're trying to find this intersection of scale, policy, and capital that can help show how to drive the transformation. We know what transformation looks like. We can describe the adjectives, but the how to do it is what we need to learn how. And this is a big part of our work every day, and it's a key to, I think, the work that DUT is doing and helps us learn as quickly as possible. I would note doing that requires us also to question how we've done engagement of citizens and stakeholders in the past. It's not a matter of incrementally increasing the things we've been doing over the last 20 to 25 years in our cities. Sometimes we have to do them a different way, and that has to do with things like building retrofits, deployment of renewable energy, transforming infrastructure, et cetera. We're not retrofitting buildings, we're retrofitting communities in many senses of the word. Finally, I'll just finish with coming back to Annalisa's opening point about multi-level governance. Cities can't do this without active cooperation with national, regional government, and the commission. And we're working very hard with capacities and with all the national governments who are participating with DUT to really ground that recognition that we have to do it together. Cities are asking for that support and they depend on that support. And it's not just about money, it's about policy. It's about connecting to the business community, understanding the needs of the businesses to meet this challenge alongside the cities if we're going to be successful. And there's great leadership happening in several ports and in construction companies, et cetera. There's a lot to build upon, but we need multi-level governance because we can't get to net zero, we can't get to climate neutrality without that active multi-level governance approach. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Thomas, and thank you for all the panelists for identifying the challenges, the most important challenges that you see for the implementation of this strategy towards climate neutrality. I'd like now that we move to the second question that I would like to ask you to reply, which is about some of you have already hinted at elements of solutions, which is basically linked to what DUT as a partnership can contribute to and can provide in terms of support to the cities that are involved in the mission in their journey towards climate neutrality. And the second question, related questions, is on the importance of DUT as a platform to promote and enable multi-level governance that has been mentioned by some of you already. And this inclusive participation and the role of citizens and the local community, which also was raised by a number of you as one of the key issues. So I'll start again with Annalisa.
Yes, thank you very much. I know, talking about dragons, I know the former dragon, you know, the JPI Urban Europe, I've worked with that.
Dinosaur.
Okay, no, but come on. Anyway, whatever. And so I don't know very, very well the DUT as it is. I don't know exactly, I don't have a specific project in Bologna or that I know directly that I've worked with, but and so I'm really happy to be here today to explore further what we can do. What I can bring and what I can feel could be maybe an answer from the DUT to ideas we have is on the, again, on the governance level. I mean, this is really, it's really the key point. I mean, governance in many ways, we've heard in terms of institutional level. So how can we build a national platform? I know some countries have that. So a national platform where ministries coordinate, where there is, also, I don't know, industrial partners around it, where some of the cities start getting into the conversation and there is, work together in terms of standards, in terms of regulations, in terms of policies, whatever. So that, I think if the DUT could support in helping this sort of national platform, it would be fantastic. Of course, to open up to many cities, not only to the nine Italian cities in this case. That's one. Then for sure, governance at the city level. I mean, one of the P's were, people, and I mentioned, the people that are pro climate, the climate transition, and the people who are more, pushing. But what I've seen is that we need to move we have to follow the theory of change, was it the theory of change? The thing from deniers to convincing. So I think we have to bring more people to the pro areas, but not by making them feel guilty or responsible or obliged and these kind of things. It's very subtle, the way in which you can convince people or in which you can work with people. And we've seen that, for instance, working through the Citizens' Assembly on climate has been a sort of mini miracle in Bologna. I mean, we have changed our own statutes to create a new body, like we have the city council, the city board, and so on. There's a new body that is called Citizens' Assembly. This can be called by either 5,000 citizens or by 2/3 of the city councillors on any sort of topic or let's say request that these 100 citizens that have to be put together to form an assembly can ask to the city council to act upon. So we've done this with 2/3 of the councillors on climate, more specifically on climate and more specifically on the energy transition. And that has created an incredible effect on at least 87 people, in the sense that we've applied a very complex but very clear methodology to make sure that the group of people that in the end formed the assembly is really representative. So we've worked with like universities and the transport agency to make sure that 20% would be city users, so not residents, and that they've fished in many in their own 800, 100. Lots of people, basically, thousands people. Then the rest were, people selected in terms of gender, in terms of age, and in terms of residence. So which neighborhoods? We have 6 neighborhoods. And in the end, the sort of 100 citizens that were selected were really representative of the city, let's say. The survived ones, let's say, because we were asking, presence through 4 months, to be present and participate in sessions of 3-4 hours. We paid a jeton. How do you say? We paid a fee. No, not a fee, but you understand the participation fee. Yeah,
a bribe.
No, no, absolutely not. But anyway, we gave babysitting services and stuff. So we really tried to create the conditions for citizens to participate. But still, there were people who, at the end, dropped for many reasons. But very clear, and there was a lot of motivation. And we went through the phase of learning. So we didn't, as municipality, we didn't choose what information or what competence create in the group. There was a committee that was created with independent experts that decided the program, basically. So for 3 months, they went through, listening, learning, and so on. We had lots of stakeholders called from the wide spectrum of perspectives, basically, on climate. So not only those that we think were pro our program and so on. So basically, it was an incredible program of empowerment, which then led to a deliberation. They even met beyond the meetings that we created, and now they want to create an association basically and become agents of change in the cities. They produced a report. If you want to look on it on the website of the Comune di Bologna, you will see, a big, a volume of recommendations. We have 6 recommendations. They're all they all make sense, of course. We have integrated them in the Climate City contract, and we try to respond to all those, let's say, proposals. So just to say that is something that can really work, and it really creates basically a strong cooperation between the knowledge institutions, researchers, those that have the knowledge, the municipalities that basically create the institutional framework to act and the policy framework, and civil society with individuals, people, and so on. So these kind of experiments, I think, should be supported by maybe DUT or whatever, but it's something that would, I think, be very, very beneficial for in all cities.
Thank you, Annalisa. Johan.
Well, just to keep it very short, then maybe two quick examples. I mean, the DUT partnership, the DUT partnership, provides the financial resources really for mission cities to take action, you could say, or give that opportunity at least. And it's interesting from a Swedish perspective because we were quite weak in this area when it came to access to EU funding and so on from the research community, and also, of course, the municipalities. So from Formas, we really have dedicated a lot of time and effort and work to engage the research community and communities in Sweden to understand the possibilities of accessing these kind of resources. And having then DUT really focusing on this helps a lot. What we could see in the last calls now, for example, is that the success rate has really gone up so much that we, as the funder, we have to decide twice to increase our funding. And this again is something that put pressures on us as a funder to be flexible in terms of that. If we are successful, make sure that we can also step up our support to really meet what DUT does. So this is a good example, I think, where we provide that financial access to European funding, but also through that, of course, build partnerships, not just in Sweden between researchers and cities, but also on a pan-European level. And I think that is absolutely critical. I mean, really that broad stakeholder participation, and also the fact that, of course, more than one country should be in each project, at least 3, I think it is. So I think that is really critical, very, very important. And then my second point is to really proactively work to connect the mission cities also with DUT, and a little bit of advertising. We are organizing in late May a conference in Sweden, in Umeå, in northern Sweden. It will be working hours is as long as the sun is up, just so you know. So it's going to be a lot of things done there. When you come. So that is a DUT city panel in Umeå, northern Sweden, to discuss and exchange thoughts on urban social sustainability. And I think that is critical to what we talked about before, the social dimension, really critical. And this will be back-to-back meeting with the first Swedish Cities Mission Forum also in Umeå. So this is really organized in order to strengthen that dialogue directly between DUT and the mission cities, at least in Sweden, of course, at the European level as well. So.
Thank you, Johan. Margit, if you allow me, I will ask you to intervene at the end.
That's fine.
So that you can reply to the numerous expectations that have been raised by the speakers. Ovidiu, from your side.
I think that DUT partnership is a very good example of complementarity of the funds. So 1/3 of the money came from the European level, 2/3 from the national levels. And I think that is a good idea. I see in Romania a lot of lack of complementarity. With European money, you're making green projects. With local budget, you're making new capacity for cars, for example, for roads. And this type of complementarity, as an example, can be go further. And even us in Romania with this platform, we think to increase the budget with the platform that we are allocating for the DUT partnership in order to provide more results for the cities. And second, I think that DUT partnership is bringing more capacity to the cities because we see in Cluj, we work a lot with the technical university for improving the public transport, for new project for hydrogen buses and building a power plant. And the researchers, the experts from universities, for example, they are bringing a lot of new resources to the municipality. And I think that DUT partnership is doing this, but also it's doing even more. It brings experience from other countries, from other cities, which is very relevant and extremely important. And you can do a local research for your neighborhood, for your streets, but to have also this connection with other experts from other countries. And I think this is important. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Ovidiu. Thomas.
Just to beat the dragon theme to death, it's good to note that we're 6 weeks into the year of the dragon. And fun fact, I was born in the year of the dragon. So I guess we're going to have to learn how to train our dragons. To get as many pop culture references in here as possible. I think two quick things I'd note. First, that one of the things, and I think one of the first things we said to the cities 2 years ago is, you know, they didn't know they were signing up for a long-term relationship. And that's what the mission entails. We're here to be here for the duration. And that requires us to build trust, build relationships, and build processes that are different than a project fling. And I think one of the great opportunities we have with DUT is we've got a platform for the mission, and we've got DUT as a platform who both have the chance to not only capture the synergies of what DUT is obviously programming and providing resources for, but building an anticipatory aspect into how DUT is designing its call so it can continue to be looking ahead of all of the things that are emerging as we venture down this road. We know that part of our challenge is to help all of Europe get to climate neutrality, so it means figuring out how to replicate. And we often say the most important thing that happens in a positive energy district is what happens outside of a positive energy district. Because if we don't learn how to replicate these things quickly and effectively, we're creating projects. And so the anticipatory dialogue that we can have and working together with DUT and have that kind of formal partnership of looking ahead, drawing upon what we're collectively learning across all the work of the cities with national governments, research institutions, universities, and the commission, we can use two platforms together in a way that allow us to get the most value out of project-based funding and delivery, as well as the mission-based program. So that would be my thoughts.
Thank you, Thomas. And I believe you already have a cooperation agreement between the mission platform and DUT.
Nearly there.
We have an MOU signed, yeah.
All right.
Nearly
So,
there, yeah.
Margit, as CEO of DUT, can you meet all those expectations?
We are up for it, right? We put the bar high ourselves in order claiming the ambition to support bringing strategies to actions along this mission approach. And I can just agree with the different aspects that you all have mentioned and what this support to the mission means and how it materializes, right? From the beginning, we had the intention to add and complement to what European Commission is doing for the implementation of the mission. And I'm very convinced that we need all hands on deck, not only to achieve the cities mission, but becoming climate neutral as a continent, which means that all the cities and all the actors take action and transform, right? And as we have 112 cities now in the mission directly, we can offer a wider space for more cities, smaller cities that might not be able to compete on the European scale, but on the national level, right? That can engage and need support. And like in Austria, we have one cities mission, but we have, I don't know, nearly 40 cities engaged now in the national mission. Right? So there is a lot that we can multiply, and some countries have been very very advanced and active in using DUT in the national context for their mission implementation. So this is not a standalone thing, engagement on this transnational programming and then whatever happens for the mission, but they are connecting the dots strategically. And I think this is the asset that we can use, that we work with our partners and the national regional authorities to make these links, add to what the mission is aiming at, translating it into the national regional context, and of course aligning in very concrete measures, like Johan mentioned, a very specific example, right? We're now teaming up and taking use of resources on both sides to have our city panel connecting it to mission cities activities so that we can explore more, that we can widen the number of stakeholders that are engaged and mobilized, and by that gradually, achieve the ambition.
Thank you very much. Before we give a round of applause to our speakers, I have the duty to wrap up. I'm nearly on time, which is amazing for me. And I should be summarizing the intervention of the different speakers. I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to give you a couple of reflections from my side as regard the contribution of the DUT to the mission. I think the real strength of the DUT as a partnership is the involvement of the national and the regional authorities, the national program managers and program owners that are involved in this partnership. And this is something that is really the strength of the partnership. It's not only about leverage of funds, even though it's very important because there is a sizable budget that is channeled through the DUT partnership in these activities regarding urban environment and regeneration of buildings, positive energy districts, 15-minute cities, circular economy, and so on. It's about the involvement of those national authorities. And we have heard a lot from the speakers, the importance of the multi-level governance in order to have a successful implementation of the mission. DUT is a tool that allows this alignment between the priorities of the national, regional, and local authorities. So this is something that we have to build on. I think the other thing, regardless of what you were told, Thomas, in the past, I think there is never too much of innovation. And DUT is there for innovation reasons and is driving innovation. And it is an incubator of innovative solutions for me that can be used successfully by the mission cities to roll out the implementation of their mission. So there is a clear complementarity between what DUT is doing and what the mission city is doing through precisely the innovative solutions that will be developed, nurtured as incubators by DUT. The other thing which I think is important is the role of the local governments, the citizens, and the fact that we have to make sure that we are as inclusive as possible in implementing this strategy of climate neutrality. And there, again, DUT has a great role to play. And in addition to that, I think we raised, and some of you raised also the need for capacity and the fact that cities, most of the local authorities that are involved in this process require capacity building. And there again, this is something that DUT can contribute to. So there is a lot of reasons for which we should have closer cooperation between DUT and the mission cities and the city's mission as well. Now I think that's all I want to say from my side because I'm already past the time. And I would like to ask you to give a round of applause to the participants of this session. Thank you very much.